Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hi, everybody. This is Lydia. And today I have a special guest to introduce you to. I'm sitting here with Donna Wick, PhD. Hi, Donna.
Hi, I'm so happy to be visiting with you today, Lydia.
Yes, it's so great to see you on the other side of this screen. I just love being Facebook friends with you and watching your journey, and it's really great to connect. I like to start off the episode by introducing my guest at the level of how I know them or how I don't know them. And today I actually know Donna. 2017 is when I met Donna. We were asked to participate on a Super Bowl showcase. It was called the Game City Showcase, and Myra was doing it. And she asked me to help her. And then Donna was one of the influencers and people that were involved in her aspect of it. And we all got together at the end of the showcase right before the Super Bowl started. And I met her at dinner one night. And I remember that she was so dynamic and so beautiful. And I just really resonated with the conversation that I had with her, that I just wanted to get back in touch with her, as soon as I could. And so that's when we became Facebook friends. And your life, which is what you're going to share with us, went through a whole big transformation during that time. So I reached out to Donna and asked her if she would like to tell her story, her inspirational story on the podcast. So Donna, I'm going to let you take us back to kind of the origin and share with us who you are so that the audience can really have an idea of who they're having a conversation with. So go ahead and let us know a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So yes, right after I met you, Lydia, then I went back to my life and the whole thing imploded. So yeah, let me give a little background, and then we can talk about
what happened.
The fantastic world of laying prostrate in front of the entire universe. So.
Oh my goodness! Well, so that's a trailer, a teaser trailer, if I ever heard one. Yeah. Okay, so tell us who you are.
I was born in Texas City, Texas.
Oh,
and very homespun girl. We had 3 daughters. I was the middle daughter, and we were all DM. So it was Debbie May, Donna Maria, and Denise Marseille. Because at the time, my dad was a surveyor, and our last name started with a D. So he dealt with DMD, which is double meridian distance. And so that is how we all came up with our names.
That's funny.
So, And so I went to Catholic school starting out. And so I joke that I'm a Catholic school survivor. And, and the first day of school, Sister Adeline, who had just come over from Ireland, and I'm Irish, and she had us all line up, boys in one line, girls in another line. And we all held out our hands like this. And she racked us all on the knuckles with the ruler just to let us know what we were in for.
Oh my gosh, gave you a taste of what was to come.
Right. And so wow. I was deprived of kindergarten. So this was my first day of school anywhere. And I thought, wow, this is going to be interesting, But I had always had this compunction towards spirituality and to God. And so even as a first grader, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to help people get to know God. I would lead excursions up and down the alleyways of Texas City, looking for this divine ladder from the heavens. And we would,
wow,
and we're going to go find God and have a conversation. So that was very real to me. And so I've always had this very deep-seated connection with my creator. And I realized it was because I was really going to need that to get through my life. That was going to be very important. And
to survive, right?
Yeah. So, I was born in 56, so 66 years old. But, at the time, this was back in the days of 3 martini lunches, and everybody drank and everybody smoked. So my parents were country folk. They were raised on farms and had lots of children in their families. And they weren't quite ready for the city life. And so they became, raging alcoholics. They just didn't know how to handle it. And alcohol became their love. And so, being the middle daughter, I took a lot of responsibility in the household for my siblings. And again, it all is very normal, so this isn't like a woe is me. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that had great childhoods, bad childhoods, whatever it was.
It's the framework that helps us understand where all the other decisions come from, right? That's what you're laying the foundation for.
That's right. So I kind of grew up with this feeling that we were just different. And I really didn't realize that until I started hanging out with girlfriends. So I was a cheerleader, and then I went on to be in the drill team. And but even still, my popularity was kind of on the fringe. I wasn't like the super influencers, I was kind of on the fringe of that. But I always just felt like I was different, and not in a great way. And so it's kind of the beginning of kind of that imposter phenomenon that.
Yeah. Like there's just something flawed about the whole thing, right?
Right. And, it's kind of like those pictures you see in high life, like, what's the one thing that doesn't belong in this picture? One of these things don't belong with the other. It was always me.
Love that. I love those cartoons, but that's funny. You're like, it's me. I'm the one that doesn't belong.
I was the one. So we were, we had the police called out to our house all the time to, at least once a week, to break up fights with my parents. And
sounds like a lot of shame. You probably had a lot of shame. I mean, these were like not even things you were doing. You were a participant by default. You were in this family,
in my environment, right?
Yes.
And so we were known as those people that lived in that house.
Yeah.
And then you grow up with a code. So anyone that's been in dysfunctional settings know that there's a code. Our code was don't think, don't feel, and don't tell.
Wow. Yeah.
And
secrets.
So, lots of secrets. And so that was how I was raised.
Yeah.
I didn't have that luxury of, like, when I went out to get my apartment when I graduated high school, I didn't have my parents go with me to look at the apartment and to help me, how do you get your electricity connected? And
you buy furniture.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It was, it was basically buy.
Yeah. And it was like you having to go figure it out on your own because your parents weren't available.
Right. And so you grew up really quickly like that. And so now I know how to kind of separate those different personalities of me, but the most dominant personality I have is what I call Performance Donna.
Yeah.
Performance Donna. She figures it all out, and she's going to make it work, and she is going to nail it.
And you're autonomous in that, right? You get to get it all done, right?
Right. And there's a thing that I would find out later in life about being hyper independent, and how even though you feel like so accomplished, you actually feel very alone and very unloved because you're doing everything yourself. and you're not sharing anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went to A&M for a few years, and I was a pre-law major. Oh, really? I enjoyed being there, but I went to school at night. Again, I was just different, and I worked during the day. And and then I transferred over to University of Houston, again, going to school at night, and just didn't feel like, I had that whole college experience, but I was also working. So that was why I left A&M to move to Houston, because I was working and I knew I could make greater pay. And so, I have lived a very robust and interesting life. And through all of my life experiences, I decided at one time that I just really wanted to talk about love. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to help people find love themselves, love others, be compassionate, exercise compassionate kindness. And of course, we teach what we most need to learn, right? And so that was something that I most needed to learn. So I started, I did this unity circuit called Let Your Light Shine. And so I went to all these different unity churches, and I would do this program with this workshop on letting your light shine. And I ended up at this church in Albuquerque, and there were very few people there. And they said, "Hey, you wanted to scrap it?" I said, "Well, no, I mean, these people have shown up. I mean, if they've shown up, I mean, we'll just have a very intimate little workshop, And then after that workshop, I was approached by two people that had attended the workshop before we even left the church. And they said, "Hey, we own an infomercial company, and we would like to know if you would do the very first spiritual infomercial in America." I'm like, this is fantastic.
Wait, what year was this? What kind of time frame?
This was, I've accelerated to probably 2012.
Okay.
And I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. And so we launched this infomercial, and but I was still so naive about the process of loving and living. And because I had always been surviving, I spent my whole life just, batting balls, just trying to stay in the game, just trying to go to the next step. Yes.
Yeah. But you had you got married and had children, right? But
right.
After that, I know your kids are in their 20s or
they're in their 30s now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this was back in, what is that, like the 80s?
Right. So 88 and 90, they were born.
And was the husband you were with when I met you, was that the same? Oh, no. Okay. So you had someone else. Okay. So yes, their father is different.
So I was in and out of marriages, in and out of relationships. That's
part of your book, right? You talk about stuff like that in your book, because you're just seeking love from the people that, versus yourself. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because I was always living life, outside in, if you love me, then I'm feeling good. Today, I'm really confident in myself. And when we met, I was very confident myself as far as my identifier, which was a PR agency, which I'm getting to. But now I really know me. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, even if you've had this fantastic childhood, so it's not about bad childhoods, it's about how authentic you're showing up for your life. And authenticity, like vulnerability, is a hell of a gutsy move. You really got to be gutsy to really live your life. And in this day and age, nobody even wants to admit what their political affiliation is, so how are you really going to, talk about what your beliefs are? And, so So I grew up, whatever you believed, I believed, and if I did that, I knew that you would like me and possibly love me, and then I could get my validation, my confirmation as a human being. And so I ended up doing this infomercial, and
wait, what was it about? What was the infomercial selling?
It was selling a program called Awaken the God Within. And
it was a program. Mm-hmm.
It was like Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within, but it was like the spiritual bent of that. And actually, they had wanted Marianne Williamson for this spot. And they said, well, we really, and I love Marianne Williamson, we platformed together several times. And they said, well, we really want you because what you're teaching is really kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Whereas Marianne, she is coming from A Course in Miracles. So they thought, instead of us having to sell Course in Miracles, then the message,
right?
I was just coming with the message. So,
right.
You
were already in alignment with it, basically.
Right. So we did the infomercial. Then I was doing interviews talking about the infomercial. And then a radio station in California offered me a spot, a drive time radio spot to have my own show. So, I said yes. And that show was called Vision for America. And it was about, it's not what you believe, it's what you do with what you believe. It's like, how are you making the world a better place?
I love that. That's what the Oneness Junkie podcast is.
Right. So again, collective consciousness we were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, we basically attracted this opportunity for us by having the same desires for the world, right?
Right. Which is how to see things differently.
Yeah. And to create more compassion in the world, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I didn't know that about you. That's so cool.
Yes. So
Vision for America. You need to bring that back out.
And actually, when we started, it was during the Monica Lewinsky and President Clinton debacle.
Uh-huh.
And I just had a very unique stance. And I said, well, let's really look at that. I mean, and I think this whole description will basically encapsulate how I feel about life. I said, what if President Clinton signed up for this? I mean, what if he's the whole Horatio Alger rags to riches story? What if he came from, this child, small child in Arkansas, and they came up to the global pinnacle power, which was President of the United States. And what he did, what I felt he and Hillary did, was that they kind of mirrored back to society what our societal ills were.
Yeah.
And instead of us saying,
it's a mirror, basically, isn't it?
Yeah. Instead of saying, wow, yeah, what he's doing is wrong, maybe we should look at that. No, we said at that time, the Dow was at 10,000. It was like, hey, the Dow's at 10,000. Let him do what the hell he wants to do. We're all good. We're all good here. So it's okay with him. And so I would interview people on the radio as they would call it. We'd, call-ins. And I was one of the first shows that ever had text chat rooms. I don't know if you remember way back in the day, we had chat rooms. And people would say, hey, the Dow's at 10,000. And I would say, well, let me ask you, are you an investor? I mean, are you concerned about your stocks?
Money in the Dow?
Yeah. And it's like, well, no. And I said, okay, so let me ask you this. So you're telling me that if your husband or your wife, as long as they're providing for you, they can actually go do whatever they want? They're like, well, of course not. I said, okay, because that's what we're saying. And so instead of us learning how to kind of keep our side of the sidewalk clean with the President Clinton, Monica Lewinsky situation, we just made that right. We made that right. And then no homework,
Right. Well, no need to look in at ourselves. But the position that I come from is that it's a mirror. Like, he's just being who he is. And there is a lot of other people doing very similarly, things that they have no room to be hypocritical, like we're
Right.
all fallible, right? And so like, what's that Bible verse about, I don't even know it, but it's like they who can cast the first stone, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
It's that concept. So like, I think about just focusing on me, like the world and the people are going to do what they're going to do. I only have to focus on what I'm doing. And it's like, turn that energy back onto yourself about how can you be the best that you can be? Because clearly he's not being, the best he can be because he's not being in integrity with his, relationship.
Right.
And who
But
knows,
actually,
maybe Hillary was okay with
it's
it.
we the people, we the people elected him. And so he mirrored back to we the people, what we look like. And then
And how human we are. Because
and how
I know,
human
I
we
know,
are.
I know ministers who have been, unfaithful.
Yeah.
They're just
Right.
human.
Because we're
People
all
are
human.
human. Exactly.
Yes.
We're
And
all-
and the spiritual stance to that is, as long as we look to man,
the
as long as we
outside
look
world.
to right, the outside world, then we're always going to have disappointment. We're always going to have those that let us down, that really we want to keep our sights set on source, God, creator, however you want to frame that from, where your listener is, your viewer is. But it's people are always going to let us down. And I remember, as we're getting through this story, and I had, I'd gone through a life event we'll talk about. And I remember there was someone that was doing a program about the very thing I had gone through. And I had asked that person, I said, hey, if anybody could talk about this, it's me, I mean, I've lived this, I really have a lot to say about this. And it's like, well, no, basically they said, you kind of did it the wrong way. So it was like,
so this was after 2017. They said that.
yes,
That's
yeah.
so silly. I want to get to that, but
Yeah.
let's wrap up the intro, part of the thing, and we'll dive into your
Okay.
the tragedy. I was just going to say that to finish this conversation around, looking outside of ourselves for other people to be, perfect or infallible, right? That they're not human and making mistakes. I think about whenever I have that initial thought, like, oh my gosh, because it's kind of human just to have an initial reaction and go, wow, his or her truth is coming out publicly. I think to myself, wow, where am I out of integrity? Like when we see Clinton, I'm just like, turn it on myself. Where am I out of integrity in my life? Where am I cheating myself or someone else in my life? And I think if we all turned those thoughts that we want to project out to other people and we put it back, that spotlight on ourselves, that's staying in our lane. And that's how we make the world a better place, right? Is to just understand that we all have our own work to do. And if you focus on yourself, that is enough for a lifetime to work out, right?
Absolutely. But it's interesting about that time is when reality TV then set off, because there was so much controversy in the moral fiber, the Americana conversation about Clinton and Lewinsky, that people, producers, and I come from that world, that they saw, wow, there's a lot of money to be made by stirring the pot.
Right. People get interested, right? To focus on someone else's trouble.
And to judge that and to be snarky and and I remember when my children were younger, I mean, I wouldn't even let them watch Rugrats because in Rugrats, they would always go, duh. I said, that is just rude. That is rude. We're not going to watch something that, the axiom to the whole, conversation is
Yeah, like you're dumb.
We're not going to be part of that. Yeah, we're not going to be part of that. And so I did the radio show for about 6 years, and then was in and out of marriage again, and then I on the radio show, people would call me after the radio program and say, somebody I may have interviewed. And I remember specifically, it was a person that had a book that was on the New York Times bestseller list. And they said, hey, how do you make money at this? And I said, I definitely know how to make money. Okay. So, we got to do this and this and this. So I said, call me after the show. So after the show, I would start helping people doing their marketing. And then at that time, I decided I'm going to open up my own agency.
Okay. That's where the PR firm came in.
Yes. I was decided to monetize all this that I was, giving away.
Awesome.
And so I just had a knack for that. That was my gift. It was, first of all, it was marketing and knowing how to make money, but also it was the encouragement and the building of hope for people that were trying to set out to do a thing,
Yeah.
So whether it's the business, when I would have people come into my agency and talk about their, marketing plan or what ideas that my agency might have for them. And I would tell my staff, look, these people, talk about compassionate kindness. These people sat down at their dinner table with their family, and they chose their logo, and they came up with their colors and what to call the business. And if they came up with a tagline, this is the evolution of this. This comes right from the heart and soul of these people, so we gotta be at that same table.
Yeah. Nurture that.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny. You're talking about your PR firm. In 2015, I was driving from Houston to the Woodlands on 45, and I saw your face on a billboard before I ever met you. It was like, what was it? Wick PR?
It was Wicked Publicity. So Donna
Wicked
Wick
Publicity.
was
That's right.
Wicked Publicity. And actually I held the contest for what could we say on the billboard? It had to be 5 words on a billboard. And the winner
because it has to be quick
right
to read.
So 5 words on a billboard, and we would give you $500. And so somebody from the Woodlands came up with Wicked. Actually, they came up with Wicked Creative, which sounded like a design firm. So we changed it to Wicked Publicity, and it was basically build your brand, get more customers. And so I had billboards everywhere in Houston, Woodlands. And I remember, notable folks in the Woodlands and in Houston would call me and say, wow, you're a real PR firm. It's like, yes, because, someone can say they're in public relations or they have a firm and they're really working out of a back office in their home, which is fine. Everything's virtual today. But back then, you had to have the office. You had to have all the accoutrements of success.
Yeah, well, you had it. You had a big successful.
And we did.
Yeah,
we did.
I remember. That's so awesome. Well, congratulations on all of that success. And,
yes.
It's wonderful to have those experiences because you have a lot of context. Through our lives, we get context and clarity around desires and wants and needs, and having all of that and all that success gave you a lot of perspective, didn't it?
It did.
So that brings us to, the 2017 timeframe, up to the point, that was 2015, 2016, 2017, where you and I met. And tell the audience kind of where you were at in 2017 and where your life just cracked open and what happens since then, because you have a book where you're helping people find inspiration from your own personal walk and journey. So share it with us.
So yeah. I mean, I was the it girl. And people would even ask you, how does it feel? How does it feel to be the it girl? I mean, you're the one that people go to.
Yeah, you made it. Yeah. You made it from Texas City all the way to Houston, Texas, the fourth largest city in the United States.
And it was fantastic. And every day I would go in, I had these gorgeous offices and just everything was just so posh. And I was out of my mind stressed. And I mean, stress is definitely a buzz killer. Stress is a buzz killer because it's all about regressing or projecting. It's about what I got to do next and what I didn't do well or what I should have done better and what am I going to, how are we going to do this next? I was never actually in the moment. I was never actually in today. And I don't mean that to sound like kind of airy-fairy. I wasn't in the moment, but I mean, sometimes I didn't even know what month it was because my life was, 2 or 3 months out.
Right. Exactly. Because you're planning for other seasons and things.
Right. And all of a sudden, so like I said, when I was younger, I wanted to be a teacher. I had a spiritual connection. I was very close to God. And I just started feeling different. I just kept thinking to myself, something is wrong with me. Something is just wrong inside. And then I started crying. I would, cry at home. I was in yet another relationship, another marriage, which, I mean, and all shocker, we're all very toxic, very controlling, very toxic. I just kept repeating that pattern, over and again. And so I would, cry at home. I would cry on my way to work. I would cry on my way back home. Sometimes I would cry in my office. And I just kept thinking, what is wrong with me? Because I've got the world on a string. What is wrong with me?
Why can't this be happiness? Why can't all this be happiness?
Right. And instead it was debilitating. It was like having made a deal with the devil. You
had chains, you were locked into this relationship.
Yes. And then I started really battering myself. It was, I would set off on an appointment to go see a client or a prospective client. And I wouldn't write the address down correctly. And I would just chastise myself. I'd be screaming at myself in my car, oh, you're so stupid. How do you expect to get anywhere? If you're making these stupid mistakes. And then I started making mistakes in press releases and mistakes in my billing and mistakes everywhere. And my job is with most any job, but my job, everything is perfection because I can't get a phone number wrong in a press release. I can't get a time wrong for a television interview. I can't, you have to be perfect.
Yeah, precision.
And so I'm going through all of this and I'm just having I'm just so unhappy. So I decided to go see a psychiatrist because I definitely wanted a happy pill. Okay. I didn't want to get into talking about, small childhood and, how was your relationship with your father and your mother? It's like, they were drunks. I don't want to get into that. I need to be happy now. I have got to be happy right now. And so I mean, he never even said the word depression. He said, he responded to what I was saying. I'm crying all the time. I'm just unhappy. I should be at the top of my game. I'm a smart person. He says, I have exactly what you need. And he prescribed a pill for me. I'm not going to say the name because it actually was the worst thing I could have taken, but somebody might be taking them and have great experience. Right. I'm not going to say, but gave me this pill, never said, do you think you might be depressed? Or have you ever heard about depression? Or, no. And so I got my prescription filled. And then I started having these thoughts, like in the Woodlands, there's this flyover, that goes to the pavilion and all that.
Right, from the freeway.
And I would take that flyover. I would think, if I could hit this thing at about 90, I could bounce off that and I could just go off the side and that'd be it.
Be gone, yeah.
Yeah. And then I would think, what is going on? Why am I thinking that? I just started having these really dark thoughts. So I called the nurse and I said, hey, I actually think what I'm taking is working reverse, because true that, I'm not crying anymore, but I'm having these really dark thoughts. And
ways you can end it all, the pain.
Right. Suicidal ideation is what it's called. But at the time, I'm just dark thoughts is all I do to say. And she says, well, I see that you're scheduled to see the doctor in about a week and a half. So just when you come in, tell him about that.
Like
and
you
girl,
had a week
that appointment never happened. That appointment never happened. And
situations just drive me crazy.
I remember 2 girlfriends. So I have my life event, which I'll explain just 2 seconds. I had my life event on a Monday, actually 5 years ago from this moment. It's been 5 years.
Yes. What is the actual date? Is it
February 20th?
Okay.
February 20th, 2017.
And today's the 22nd. Okay.
Yeah. And so I had 2 girlfriends stop by on a Thursday. And these are 2 very intelligent, very personally accomplished ladies that go to CODA, which is Codependence Anonymous, very introspective about the inner workings of who they are and, their belief system, their moral compass, just really grounded, very grounded women. And they had stopped into my office just to say hi. And of course, I'm in my office crying. So my assistant knocks on my door, says, hey, these ladies are out here. And I'm like, okay, doing like this.
Snap out of it.
I have a mirror in my office, and it's like, does it look like I've been crying? And of course I go out, I always, I'm probably the only child that really was captivated with Loretta Young when I was younger, but Loretta Young had a show, and every episode of the show, she would come out like this in every episode. And so I had my Loretta Young moment. I came out into the reception area. Hello. How are you? So glad to have you here. It's so wonderful to see you. Don't you look lovely? And we talked for a little while, and then they left. And what I found out later was they had each asked each other, should we go back inside? Because Donna doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
There's something going on. And they said, like everybody else said, she's just stressed. She's just stressed. And so they didn't come back in. The next day, Friday, I had lunch with my girlfriends. These are girlfriends I'd known for 15, 20 years. And everybody was celebrating something. And I had gone there with the intent of telling them, I'm losing it.
But you didn't want to bring the conversation to a downer.
So
everybody
was
going
around the table. Yes, they're going around the table. One got a new job, one was moving, one got a new house, one got a this. And so they got to me and I said, I I'm just so happy for you all. How fantastic. This is great news. I just want to sit here and just, be in the arc glow of all of your celebration and
your
success.
joy.
And yes. And if somebody had stopped and said, "Are you okay?" I would have splattered all over the ceiling. I was just that close.
You were on the edge.
But I didn't. They didn't ask, and not their fault. I was pretending.
Right. You weren't being authentic.
And then on Monday, I decided that I wanted to get out of the pain, and I was going to overdose. I had a cabinet full of prescription medications from anti-anxiety, another shocker, that I might have anxiety, but I never would take the medication. I would get the prescription filled and I would
so
never.
So you had a stash.
I had quite a stash. I had Oxycontin, hydrocodone. I just had all these fabulous, painkillers, muscle relaxers, and any mood altering anything. And I decided it was President's Day, like we just celebrated. And I decided to go to Galveston and I was going to take all of these medications.
Wow.
And it was a very, at the time, you feel like you're really making a really good decision. And this is what I want people to know. If you've lost someone to suicide and felt like you could have changed it, or even if you might be having your own suicidal ideations, at the moment you think, you're really thinking clearly. You really think, okay, I'm going to do this, but you're actually outside of your own body. You're not even connected to you anymore. It is this state of delusion. And as I'm driving to Galveston, I'm crying. I'm asking God, where are you? I mean, I stop at Our Lady of Fatima Catholic School on my way to grab the rosary off Our Lady of Fatima and put it on myself. And
you were hoping that God would save you from these feelings
of I kept saying
of your plan.
Stall my car.
Yeah, do something to foil my plan, right?
Right. Because then I kind of put God on notice. Because if I make it to Galveston, it's on you. It's on you, buddy. If I make it to Galveston, I'm doing this thing. So, and I know that we have those prayers. Maybe a prayer of where is God may not be as dire as that particular situation. But I think with the last 2 years of COVID and people having to look at their lives and look at themselves and being isolated, I'm sure a lot of folks have had those types of prayers. Why did I get laid off? Why did my company go out of business? Where is God in this?
Why are my parents dying alone?
Yes.
In a hospital.
And so then I realized through all the aftermath that God really never left me. God never left me. God was, I have free will, and that's where I come from in the book. It was all me. It's all my decision. Yeah. No one's accountable but me.
Right.
Not blaming anybody. And that I was exercising my free will, and God is not going to interrupt your free will. If you want to do a stupid thing, God is going to let you.
Right. If you want to exit this life, you have that choice. I always say that every day is your choice, because you can choose not to be here.
Right.
It's your choice.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And so, but what I didn't know was God was working behind the scenes on the back end of things, where I was able to get placed in incredible care and was hooked up with incredible therapists to help me. So
who found you? Was it the maid or something?
That was a miracle, because I had sent out an email that was
like a goodbye email.
No, I didn't leave any breadcrumbs.
Okay.
But I sent out an email to someone that had a lot of typos. It was like.
Oh, you had a lot of typos in the email?
Yes, I was writing an email.
Was that after
you
took
I was just kind of
pills?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, before. Excuse me.
Okay.
So it was before. So I was typing this email. I sent it out to a few people just to say how much I love them.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And when there was a constable in Montgomery County, Constable Ryan Gable, and he got one of those emails of how much I loved him, what he meant to me. And he was reading it to his wife. And so I get down to Galveston. I'm in my hotel room by 6 p.m. I'd actually eaten dinner at Guido's, which I always went to Guido's in Galveston, and I always ordered stuffed shrimp.
That was your.
And this time I went.
That was your last supper.
That was my last supper. But so I go to order fried stuffed shrimp, and they come back. Now I've been going to Guido's for like 25 years. They come back and they say, we no longer carry the stuffed shrimp.
Wow, that's an end.
And I thought,
there's a sign.
That's my sign.
I know.
That's my sign.
We're like grabbing to anything at that point, right? To
And
justify the actions.
I had, I ordered something else.
Of course, you probably weren't satisfied with it.
No, of course not.
Because it wasn't what you wanted.
Wasn't what I wanted.
Made you more
I'm not even going to get fat. Goodbye, cruel world. And,
yeah, screw this.
I remember checking into. I always stayed at the Victorian Condo Hotel, which now is no longer a condo hotel. It's just condominiums. But I purposely stayed in a hotel I'd never stayed at before. People would never suspect me. I mean, I left 0 breadcrumbs. And so when I had sent this out, Ryan, Constable Gable, was reading it to his wife, and his wife says, I think that sounds like a suicide note.
Wow. She's intuitive. She's very intuitive.
And so he pinged my phone, and he realized I was in Galveston. Well, after I'd sent those, I then turned off my phone, and I took 8 full bottles of medication.
How did you even drink all of that? That's just a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's taking a handful, doing like this, and I chugged it down with champagne, which champagne fizzes up. So I've got all this fizzy, icky stuff all over me. So my son was actually getting an award in Houston, and he had stepped down from the stage, and he received a phone call that says, I think your mom's in trouble.
From the constable.
And they're like, my daughter was with my son. It's like, no, mom's good. Mom's good. Mom's good. She's just stressed. Mom's good. And he said, well, do you know that she's in Galveston? They're like, no. He says, okay, well. So I had the sheriff go around, try and find my car. And I remember when I checked into my room, the young clerk asked if I was there for pleasure or business. And I remember telling him that I was definitely there for business.
Wow.
I had business.
Yeah.
And so my son called, they found my car, so they knew what hotel I was in. They were going to try and break down the door. My son asked them to go unlock the door, which they couldn't do, but they ended up doing it. They ended up going in there and finding me.
Because you wouldn't respond to the knocking and your car was there.
Right. And I was already gone. So to put you in an ambulance, they have to revive you. Otherwise they don't put you in an ambulance.
They call the morgue.
A coroner. Yeah. And so they spent a little over an hour in that room reviving me.
How much time? Can I ask a little details? How much time? Because that was 6, right? You said you texted the constable around 6 or so. How much time between taking the pills and someone breaking down the door? Because that's got to be perfect timing for you
Right.
to be
It
able
was
to
several
survive
hours.
that. Oh, like it was dark, like 10 o'clock or, okay.
Yes.
Okay. So several hours that medicine was in your system.
Right.
Wow. So that's
And for people that think that you're going to have this kind of this Lana Turner type of,
euphoric sleep.
Yeah. You get this beautiful gown and you're laid out and you just, like that. No. So I was covered in vomit. It was orange. It was covered all in orange vomit. I had orange vomit all in my hair. And
because your body wanted to stay alive.
Right. But I was in effect gone. And then when they took me into the emergency room, they told my kids on 3 separate occasions, because now my kids had gone down to Galveston. They were with me, totally traumatized my kids. And they were told 3 times, go say your goodbyes. She's not going to make it. And then I ended up being in a coma for a week at UTMB. And I remember my son's voice saying, if you can hear my voice, squeeze my hand. And that's how I came out of my coma. And just again, for just building in the reality of all of this, was that the first day of my coma, my husband filed for divorce. He had talked with the physician. The physician said, in all likelihood, she's going to be brain dead. And
he wanted to get out before he
wanted to get
care
out.
of you.
Yeah. And then when you try to commit suicide, you have to go to a psych ward,
right,
before they set you free. And that was the absolute best thing that ever happened to me in my life, because I learned about self-love and self-respect and self-care and setting boundaries and grieving and codependency and all these things about myself that I had been fighting myself, but I didn't know why I kept repeating certain patterns. I didn't know why I kept having the same outcomes in my relationships. And it was just the absolute best thing. And I learned so much while I was in the psych wards. That was almost a 20-day experience, I believe. And during that time, my employees re-signed all of my accounts and started their own PR firm. And I was served divorce papers. And so like everything was coming apart. And I remember at the time, God, I was just kept saying, God, please don't take my business. Please don't take my business. But because that was my identifier. That was my thing I did right, and
you were good at it.
And I was good at it, but it also caused me a lot of stress.
Right.
I really wasn't living my fulfilling best life.
Right. It's a life of holding up a lot of plates. You have to spin a lot of plates.
I would always make that equation, the Ed Sullivan Show, the guy spinning all the plates,
Yeah. It's not a good life.
It's not a good life. But it was only the life that I knew that I was really doing something right. And so I got out of the psych ward. I felt very empowered. And I then connected with a therapist. I've been seeing the same therapist now for 5 years.
Wow.
Every other Thursday, therapy Thursday. And but I've also brought in other types of advisors in my life. So I also have she's like a life coach, mentor. I really look at her like a dream merchant, and she's opening me to kind of the next chapter of my life. So it took me, here's the book. It's called In Search of Glue. And I called In Search of Glue because the first quote is from a play that says, she was a broken doll looking for a man with glue. And if that doesn't sum up my formative years, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
I was always looking for someone that was going to put me together again. But the thing is, all of us are broken.
Yeah.
And all of us are looking for someone to put us together. And so it didn't work out like how I thought it would. And so I remember going back to my office to get some things. And
you mean after the 21 days and everything?
After I got out of the psych ward, I went back to my office, had to go with my attorney because my office was shuttered and all this. And I remember walking to my office, and it was like out of the movie A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. There were just all these Post-it notes everywhere, stacks of paper, stacks of magazines, stacks of files, and I just started crying. And my attorney said, I know it must really be hard, meaning like coming back and like not having this anymore. And I said, no, it's looking at this now. It's like, I felt so sad for the woman that used to be in that office, me, that was living in kind of this furious state with all this clutter, all this madness around me.
Noise.
I had a whiteboard with all this scribbling on the whiteboard, and I don't know how anybody could go into my office and leave and think, yeah, man, she's got it together. I mean, I clearly did not have it together.
Just overwhelming, right?
Yes.
Like a life of overwhelm.
Yes. Yes. And that for me, you hear people saying, wow, I really operate well under stress. And that was me. But now that I'm on the other side of all this, like I said, God was working behind the scenes. I was able to get into Cypress Creek Hospital, which actually did not have room for me. And magically, they made room for me. I had the best doctors. Everything was just so laid out for me when I finally came to.
It's literally a miracle that you are here and you have your wits about you. You're not brain dead. I mean,
right.
It's just a miracle. It's a miracle.
That in itself, yes.
Yeah.
It was just an absolute miracle that I survived. And the doctors, yes. And I remember my son, when the doctors would come in and say, okay, your mom's not going to make it. And my son would say, no, you cannot say that in front of her. She's listening to you. You can't say that.
Right. The power of the mind.
Yes. And so, and today I have this, such a great relationship with my kids, that, I basically told them that, I gave them life, and in turn, they gave life back to me they literally moved to Galveston. They completely changed their lives to be with me in that moment. And, and there's, of course, a lot of guilt and shame about that I had to overcome also, because, traumatizing your kids, you're not supposed to lean on your kids, right? No, you're supposed to, be the one that's got it all together.
The strong one. Yeah.
And, so
what are the lessons? So, because we're coming up on, what are the lessons that you want to impart from your life experience, from the information, like where are you today? And then let's talk about anyone who has a desire to connect with you or to get your book, how can they find it? So what are some of the lessons that you've learned from this life experience, and where are you today?
Yeah. So first of all, I have the greatest sense of peace. I did go to an ashram outside of Dallas. I did learn some exercises to help me get rid of anger and resentment and guilt and shame. And it's just different yogic positions that for me absolutely worked. I don't harbor any resentment, not only to anybody outside, to my ex-employees, that to the business, that, they kind of raped and pillaged the offices and stealing equipment and everything. And I don't have any anger, hurt, and resentment towards myself. And even though I've met people that are mad at me, maybe they had signed on with my agency, and then of course we weren't able to fulfill their contracts. And I would say, but I'm still me. I can still help you. I can still do this. I was just damaged goods, and people were mad at me. Today, people are still mad at me. And
you've had to let go of that, right? That responsibility.
I could only be me, right? So I just figure
you can't carry that burden. Let's just kind of go in there. I want to dive in that a little bit. When people have a challenge or have an issue that comes from within them. So you're saying people are mad at me, right? And they're projecting their frustration and anger onto you. Mm-hmm. You can't be responsible for what somebody feels. You can give your blessing and your apologies, and this is, you can do all of that, be responsible for how you left people or whatever. But you can't carry the responsibility of how somebody else feels because of your existence and how you participate.
Because then how do you go on? So I just figured that, I was extremely remorseful. I didn't come out thinking, wow, I'll write a book and I know how to market it. It took me 3 years to get to the point of writing a book. It actually took me 2 weeks to write the book.
Wow.
I wrote it in 2 weekends. I wrote it on one weekend. I edited it on the next weekend.
It was flowing.
Because I was in it, right?
It was inspiring though. You were inspired to write the book. So it just came out.
So you are actually my second radio interview. And the other one was right before my 5-year anniversary of my life event. And now you're my second. So I'm not out like, hey, I'm gonna make this happen for myself. Right. I really want to let people know a couple of things. You're talking about, what are the takeaways? First of all, when you feel in your body something is not right, to listen to that, because you know yourself better, even through all of your hurts and pains and agonies and anxieties and triumphs and successes. You know yourself. And so when things aren't feeling right, and to listen to that. Secondly, stress is not only a buzz killer, stress is a killer. And I know getting hyped up on stress, like, wow, I'm really doing it. That is just really warped. You can have success and not have all of that stress. And then I had to change my group of friends, getting away from toxic relationships, getting away from people making me think I'm hard to love. That was me. Everybody's like, you're so hard to love, and just feeling so unlovable in that. I actually put together my own advisory board of people that represent my future self or where I want to go. Even though I still have friends from then, I don't want to wallow in this. I I'm certainly not narcissistic or sociopathic enough where it's like, well, I'm just going to go on. No, I was extremely remorseful for, well, even still today, that that people were hurt through my actions. There's just, all I could do is go on and be a better person. Um, the book In Search of Glue, I mean, it's available on Amazon. If you're a Kindle member, I think you can just get it for free. It's not so much about the book. I'm on Facebook. Anybody can go to Donna Wick and find me on Facebook. Really, what I would like to do more is just connect with people. And, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. But I have learned a few things. And, even in my agency, I would have women come in and they would say, before I met my husband, I used to paint. Before I met my husband, I used to make jewelry. I used to do this. I used to be a buyer for Neiman Marcus. I used to. And then they got married and they gave up their identity and they had children and they were living this life that they thought they were supposed to be living. And all of us do it, we're trying to check all the boxes of, that we're, good, viable, affirmative people. And then when that goes away, when the husband finds somebody else, in comes the ex-wife, trying to reclaim her life. And I think that was probably one of the most beautiful things that I did at my agency. Even though they could not afford us, I would give direction where I could. I gave encouragement. I was there for them. And just giving women hope that they can go do their thing. And so that's where I am now. Before the show, you and I were talking about this video I saw on Facebook. It's been on there for years, but every once in a while it'll pop up in my feed. And it's about this man who gets a pair of glasses and he puts the glasses on and he can see what everybody is going through. Like the barista at Starbucks, he sees, and there's a little caption over her that says, I have breast cancer, or, my husband lost his job, or it has all these captions.
Yeah,
and he puts
filed bankruptcy.
Right. And
I actually call that secret suffering, when people have secret suffering that they live with.
Well, and that's the thing. We have three lives. We have our public life, we have our private life, and then we have our secret life. And our secret life is the one that's all wrapped up in shame and guilt. And that's the one that is the most harmful to us. That's the one that always pokes holes. You've seen the caption on Facebook, make sure everybody that's rowing your boat isn't drilling holes, simultaneously.
I haven't seen that.
And the secret life of us is the one that is drilling holes in our boat. It's us. And so the great thing about the book is yes, I share the story, but then it's about overcoming. I mean, the subtitle is finding yourself after losing your way. And so losing your way can be anything from losing your job to going through a divorce, or to, having a suicide attempt. So, but there is a way to find yourself, and to find yourself in a greater way where I'm living such a richly textured life now. It's real. I'm in the moment. I have stresses, but they're very few, very faint.
And you don't let them get to you. They don't control you, your stresses.
Because I am very grounded in myself, and it does take work. Fortunately, CODA, which is Codependence Anonymous, is free, and it's a 12-step program, and it is hugely helpful because it's all about relationships. You don't have to admit you're drunk or you're a drug abuser. It's all about how to handle relationships. And that's all life is our relationships.
Right.
With
We
each
come
other.
here to connect and to relate with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing that could have been the worst thing for me, they say that, sometimes you have to, have everything, lose everything before you can gain everything. And that's truth. Sometimes losing yourself, you find yourself. And that's not a false platitude. That's truth. That is hardcore truth. And the reason I do share my story, and I've like I said, I've had one TV interview, and you're my second radio interview, because it is still hard for me to talk about. And I really want to tell people there is life on the other side. I just recently lost a friend to suicide, and I have been living in such hurt because I just felt like if I had known that, I could have reached out to her, but I didn't know. And that's the thing is, if you get anything else from this, it's just ask each other, how are you doing? How's it going? And really listen to what that response is. Let people know that you're there for them, that you care for them, that you'll listen. You don't have to have the magic pill for them. It's just listen to them and just know that they have a friend. There's a lot of loneliness. We have such, like Mother Teresa would always say, that, she had a lot of poverty in her country, but that was poverty of food, of sustenance. But we have a poverty here of compassion. We have such a poverty of love. All this time I thought I was going to break the cycle of alcoholism in my family. And I finally realized that the cycle I'm breaking wasn't from alcohol addiction. It was from self-loathing. That's the cycle that I broke.
Right. Because that's why they're drinking. They're drinking to cover up the self-loathing.
Change their state. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been I love having you here on the show. And it's been so wonderful for you to share your story, share your inspirations, share your thriving. You and I connected. I shared with you that I have my sister, committed suicide, and she actually did it in front of me by creating an accident. And I've had to learn a lot of life experiences and lessons from that point. So I have a lot of compassion for you and what you've been through. And, the fact that you are not just a survivor, you are a thriver. You are thriving beyond the survival of this. Yes. And so I honor you for what you've been through. I honor you for sharing your story. I know you will be inspirational. You already are inspirational, and you will continue to have abundant opportunities to inspire millions of people who are also secretly suffering. And one of the things, and when I'm wrapping up the episode, I like to do something called Mirror Reflections. That's my little title for this. And you don't have to say anything. This is an opportunity for you to receive. Okay. So just sit back in your chair and relax. And you, again, don't have to respond. I just want to thank you, Donna, for who you are in the world. You are a, wonderful human being who has dedicated your life to serving others, whether it be in relationships and, raising your children, and also in your professional life. And I honor who you came to be in this lifetime. And I just know that you have so much to be providing out there as far as the inspirational message that you're sharing by being vulnerable and sharing your vulnerability and knowing that this is all within God's plan for you. That's how you know, what resonates for you, and to know that God is there with you as you choose every day to be continue to be a servant. But in this particular story, the story of you and how your life can be of service to the world. And I'm grateful that you said yes to coming onto the show and that we can talk about this. And I think it's a very important message for people to be authentic and honest about where they're at and how they're feeling. And I want to just mention recently in the news that young lady named Chesley, who was the extra TV correspondent. I don't know if you know the story, but he's basically was just a very happy go lucky, amazing, dynamic, outgoing, you know, had connections with Oprah and Gail and, you know, all the important people of the world. And no one really understood why she just decided to jump off of a building and end her life. And so you never know what people are going through. And you can just only be in the present moment when you're with them in the moment. So, you know, I just want to remind everybody to come from love, come from compassion, and come from grace with everyone you meet. And that's what this is really all about, is to have conscious conversation dialogues of important topics like this. Because when we heal ourselves and we spend the time like you did to work on yourself, we actually heal the world, and we heal relationships that we interact with, both personal relationships that are close to us, but also everyone you encounter, the people that you share the message to, the people that you run into the grocery store with or the gas station. It's all about what you radiate. And I just love who you're being and who you are in the world. And I thank you for taking the time to share your story. Kisses back. So I wish you a very good evening. Thank you again for being on the podcast. And maybe we'll have an opportunity to hop back on some more important conversations in the future.
I would love that.
In the future. Right. Great. Okay. Well,
thank you, Lydia.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.